A renegade officer threatens a critical peace mission.
She has no business serving on any starship.
Hey, it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Treknalysis. You will take that earring off on this ship, young lady. There will be no uniform violations here. Ensign Ro, the insubordinate Bajoran who grew up in a Bajoran refugee camp, lives by her own rules, and would later join Starfleet. Okay, yes, but before her. Fun fact though, DS9's first officer was supposed to be Ro, but Michelle Forbes didn't want to commit to another Trek series, so we got Major Kira instead. They even have the same hair. But if it wasn't for the episode Ensign Ro, which introduces Ensign Ro, we wouldn't have Major Kira, one of my favorite DS9 characters, which makes it an important episode, which is why I'm talking about it today. And with Wesley off at Starfleet Academy, we needed a new face on the bridge, one that's willing to butt a few heads. It's a story of insubordination, uniform violations, and Guinan handing out some life advice. This week on Treknalysis, it's TNG Season 5's Ensign Ro.
This mission will end in bloodshed.
Starfleet sabotage on the next exciting episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
But before I go further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And if you'd like to help support the channel, consider becoming a member. Be great to have you aboard. Captain's log, stardate, haircut. Just a little off the top. Way ahead of you. Picard's getting his hair trimmed by Mr. Mott, the best barber in Starfleet. In fact, he's so good, he can even give a haircut to a bald man. Wouldn't want that Picard mane to grow wild, now would we? And on top of all that, the man's expertise in diplomacy, tactics, and command is unparalleled.
I told him we shouldn't have colonized so close to the Cardassians. Will Riker was in for a trim yesterday, and he agrees with me 100%.
But the haircut is cut short when Riker calls Picard to the bridge to answer a distress call along the Cardassian border. And our bearded first officer has a lot to answer for.
I understand you've been discussing alternative adversarial engagement strategy with Mr. Mott.
He's the best barber in Starfleet.
The distress call was from a Federation colony, however, by the time the Federation got there, it had been destroyed.
This is the Bajora. We claim responsibility for the destruction of the Federation colony on Nerys.
I'm glad it wasn't the Bajorans.
The Bajoran terrorist attack.
Damn it! So this episode introduces the Bajorans into Star Trek, who would go on to be a big part of Deep Space Nine. Some stuff does get retconned between now and DS9, like the name the Bajora, the Bajorans being expelled from Bajor and wandering the galaxy, and even their face prosthetics, but the basic backstory of Bajor, their rich culture, and the Cardassians occupying their home world is still there.
They've had terrorist problems ever since they annexed the Bajoran homeworld 40 years ago.
Wait, 40?
The Federation is only here to help.
us. Yes, I know. The Cardassians said the same thing 60 years ago.
Well, Trek's never been the most consistent with their numbers. I'm not going to gripe about this too much.
Well, whenever you notice something like that, a wizard did it.
And coming on board to discuss the Bajora is Admiral Kennelly with a nasty Cardassian cold. Couldn't do a video conference, Admiral? Gotta spread those germs around? The Enterprise already had its run-ins with nasty colds.
Coordinates set. Warp 6 on your mark, sir.
Ginger tea with honey, 80 degrees Celsius. My Aunt Adele's cure for the common cold.
Now, I don't drink ginger tea, largely because I never bought it, but I have heard that it is a cold remedy. It's an herbal tea, in other words, not a true tea like Earl Grey, that can help with nausea, inflammation, and overall antioxidants to help fight off a cold. I'm more partial to chamomile or peppermint when a cold starts kicking my ass, but I'll buy the ginger tea explanation. So there's a new Bajoran militant splinter group led by a man named Orda who's been causing trouble for the Cardassians lately. And Starfleet suspects that he's behind the colony's destruction, so Picard's job is to find him, grant him amnesty, and maybe the Federation can start helping the Bajorans now since they have a treaty with the Cardassians. And Picard isn't entirely convinced Orda's gonna cooperate.
What do I have to offer Orta that might persuade him to cooperate?
Amnesty.
Admiral.
And then Riker calls about a new transfer to the Enterprise, one without Picard's approval. Ensign Ro Laren.
The Wellington?
The very same.
Oof, that's not a good sign. If your new commanding officer's already heard of you, it's either for a really good reason or a really bad one. And I don't think this is because of a good reason.
What'd you do?
Well, when Ro was serving on board the Wellington, she was involved in an away mission at Guinan 2, which resulted in 8 members of her team getting killed because she disobeyed orders. Yeah, that's kind of a doozy. I mean, they never say what actually happened on Guinan 2, but it doesn't sound good just from that. Ro, as a result, was court-martialed and sentenced to a stockade. The admiral brought her out because he felt that she would be a good fit for this mission and because she's Bajoran.
She has no business serving on any starship, let alone the flagship, my ship.
You're taking her, Captain.
Well, guess that answers that. Alright, let's meet the new problem ensign coming on board.
You will follow Starfleet uniform code aboard this ship, Ensign.
Now, I have thoughts about this. Starfleet has protocols, including for the uniform. It's professional, it's disciplined, and outside of rank and division color, everyone's the same, so I'm not against the idea of enforcing uniform regulations. Except that Worf gets to wear his sash. What, did someone try telling him to take it off and he threw him across the room? Or is he just good enough buddies with the captain and first officer that he can get away with it? Heck, even if you argue that Worf's Klingon sash is a cultural thing, which he grew up among humans, so I'm not sure how much that tracks, but the Bajoran earring is also a cultural and even religious thing. For all Starfleet's talk about diversity and being open-minded with other cultures, they're being pretty selectively tolerant here. Look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Heck, we're not even getting into Deanna being allowed to run around in little jumpsuits even on the bridge. Dang it, I'm starting to think Jellicoe was right, and I hate it!
I'd appreciate it if you wore a standard uniform when you're on duty.
So, no one's happy about Ro being on the Enterprise. Riker's pissed, Picard's pissed, but most importantly, Ro is pissed. Yeah, she doesn't even want to be here.
It's better than prison.
There are officers who wait years to serve on this ship.
Do you know how many ships I've turned down to be here?
You know how much I sacrificed?
Well, it didn't exactly help that Picard got her name wrong the first time.
Yes, Ensign Laren, please sit down.
Ensign Ro, sir.
Now, what I like about this little moment, even though Ro walked in with an obviously bad attitude from the start, not exactly the greatest move in front of superior officers. But when she corrected Picard on her name, Ro being her family name per Bajoran custom, he seems sincerely apologetic. It's not much, but it does show a respect for her heritage, even if she's still not allowed to wear the earring. Yes, I know in battle it could be a hazard, but it's also a clip-on. So everyone's trying to figure out which Bajoran they should contact about this mission, and Data floats the name Jaz Holza from his research, and Beverly lists his credentials.
A very concerned leader and a good spokesman for his people. And a terrific dancer.
Well, that settles it. The dancing doctor, ladies and gents! I mean, should we even be surprised Ro's rolling her eyes at this meeting? We're with you, Ro! Heck, why didn't they ask Ro right away who to talk to? That's the whole reason she's even here. Why did Data have to dig up the name Jaz Holza? We had to wait for Riker to yell at Ro during the meeting for her to say anything?
Is there a problem, Ensign?
Also, why does Riker have a boot up his ass about Ro? I mean, besides the obvious, of course. And it doesn't even go away after this episode, except the time they had amnesia.
For all we know, you and I could hate each other.
Holza is practically a nobody and has next to no influence among the Bajora. I guess dancing skills aren't that valued for people under a tyrannical dictatorship, Beverly!
And a terrific dancer.
However, Ro does point them in the direction of a guy named Keeve Falor.
He has no diplomatic experience, and he won't ask you to dance.
Shots fired, Beverly! I do like that both Data and Picard value Ro's input here. Sure, she spent a good chunk of the meeting rolling her eyes, which wasn't entirely unjustified.
Terrific dancer.
But she's still the best expert in the room about the Bajora. It kind of reminds me how Data and Picard were the only two in Hollow Pursuits that weren't actively antagonizing Barclay, who ended up being instrumental in solving the problem of the week. Sometimes the Enterprise D crew can act like they're still in high school. with an actual high schooler with them.
Or broccoli.
So they beam down to the Bajoran camp to talk to Kiev. In the context of DS9, it does give you an idea of how the Bajorans were living during the occupation, even if this wasn't technically on Bajor.
I'm pleased you agreed to meet with us, Mr. Kiev.
You honor me by the proper use of my name, Captain.
See, that little moment from earlier ended up paying off. Little understanding goes a long way.
I'm sorry, I don't wish to help you.
Well, so much for that. To be fair, it's understandable why Kiev doesn't want to help. Even though the Federation is an innocent bystander and he doesn't condone the attack on the colony, the Federation was still an innocent bystander while the Cardassians committed atrocities against the Bajora and expelled them from their homes.
The Federation is pledged not to interfere in the internal affairs of others. How convenient that must be for you.
Prime directive, man! Prime directive!
Well, it's your prime directive, not mine.
Ro makes Kiev listen though, and Picard claims that the Federation can help now because there's a treaty.
We live in different universes, you and I. Yours is about diplomacy, politics, strategy. Mine is about blankets.
Oof, another splash of cold water in Picard's face. You gotta love those moments where the Federation is being all goody-goody until someone comes by and says what's really going on.
And if Starfleet can't understand that, then the Federation is even more naive than I already think it is.
Picard has Data replicate enough blankets for everyone living in the colony and whatever else they may need, and Kiev finally agrees to help. And it's largely thanks to Ro.
You were helpful.
The blankets were helpful. Nothing I said mattered.
Hey, credit where credit is due. For everything Picard might think about Ro, she's being helpful. And seeing the way the Bajora live and how she grew up, it gives some context to why Ro is acting the way she is. She's tough because she had to be.
They're lost, defeated. I will never be.
Later on, Ro wants some alone time, so of course she goes to 10 Forward where people like to congregate. You get that advice from Admiral Jirok by any chance?
And why do you invade my privacy?
Do you mind if we join you?
Yes.
Can you believe her? I hate her hair. And meanwhile across the room, Geordi's talking shit about Ro to Guinan. Did you learn nothing from Hollow Pursuits, Geordi?
She doesn't belong here.
What, did you expect Guinan to take your side like she didn't the last time?
The idea of fitting in just repels me.
Probably thinking Geordi's a bad judge of character, Guinan heads over to talk to Ro and does what Beverly and Deanna couldn't.
Am I disturbing you?
Yes.
Good.
What Guinan does throughout the episode is give Ro exactly what she needs, and it's something that no one else could give her. Someone needed to reach out to Ro, but it couldn't have been Beverly or Deanna because even if she let them sit down, they were probably going to be too nice to tell her what she needed to hear. Guinan, however, cuts right to the quick and asks about Garen too, which Ro says everything she's heard is true. Though again, nobody ever says what actually happened.
I believe truth is in the eye of the beholder.
Isn't that supposed to be beauty?
Truth, beauty, works for a lot of things.
Treason, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder.
She even cuts right to Ro's guilt over Garen too, pointing out that she must like punishing herself over it. Beverly, Deanna, you two are way in over your head. Yeah, Ro doesn't exactly want to make friends, but Guinan isn't going to let that stop her.
I don't stay anywhere long enough to make friends.
Too late. You just did.
Ro's called away because she's receiving a call, and can we go one episode of Star Trek without a crooked admiral? Where the hell does Starfleet dig these people up? Well, it's time to meet Orda, and Ro is nowhere to be seen. Probably because she beamed down 6 hours ago. Never would have happened on Chief O'Brien's watch. He locks the council when he's away. Oh look, it's a trap.
It's a trap! I am what?
See? There's a reason Orda had to cover his face and talk with a voice box. It's not just for aesthetic, Disney.
My vocal cords were cut.
Look, I know this looks bad, but I swear, I'm not undermining the mission. I'm just trying to keep everyone from killing each other.
You don't know all the facts, sir.
Orda insists that the Bajora didn't attack the Federation colony, suggesting that someone is using Picard to get to him. And I find that this plot twist works pretty well because even though Orda isn't exactly a good guy, heck, he full out admits he's not interested in peace. But he's not the bad guy in this episode. It's someone else.
I perceive no fear or deception from him.
What? Troy! You're actually being helpful for once. Rose confined to quarters for disobeying orders, but guess who stops by when she doesn't feel like talking?
Why is it every time I tell you something, you tell me I mean the exact opposite?
Because you're one of those people who's got their polls reversed.
Ro begins to open up to Guinan. She's in trouble and feels completely powerless. She's also trying to figure out how to get out of this bad situation without getting anyone killed this time. Some shades of guilt from Guinan too. Heck, the situation has gotten so bad that she doesn't even know who to trust anymore.
Seems like everybody's just pulling my strings, you know, like I've got no control.
Again, Guinan is the only one who was willing to sit down with Ro and hear her out, which again is what Ro needed the entire time. She's not a bad person and Guinan sees that. Guinan does two things on the show.
I tend bar, and I listen.
Ro isn't in need of a drink right now, but she is in need of a friend who's willing to hear her side of things.
I got into some serious trouble too, and I'd probably still be there if I hadn't trusted one man.
Wait, is she talking about Time's Arrow?
You were hurt. I had to make sure you were all right.
Well, since she's the only person who can disregard Picard's orders, partly because she's not in Starfleet, but also partly because of the deep friendship she has with Picard that's never explained, Guinan brings Ro to the ready room.
Guinan, I don't know why you're involved in this, but...
She's my friend.
And just like that, Picard is ready to listen. Ro explains that while Picard's mission was to negotiate with Orda, Admiral Kennelly gave her another mission in exchange for getting out of prison. She was supposed to convince Orda to return to the camps, and in exchange, he would get weapons and/or ships that could be used against the Cardassians. In fact, she didn't beam down to the planet to meet with Orda without authorization. Kennelly gave it to her.
I find that impossible to believe.
Why? Starfleet is filled with people who supply weapons to one or even both sides of a conflict. One more crooked admiral supplying weapons to someone he shouldn't? This isn't news, Jean-Luc. I also have questions about how no one knew Ro beamed down with authorization. Shouldn't there be a record of this somewhere? Who was manning the transporter at the time? Clearly it wasn't Chief O'Brien. Ro does defend her actions here, which is interesting considering she didn't defend herself with Guinan too. She recounts the time she was forced to watch her father be killed at the hands of Cardassians, which made her ashamed of her father and of even being Bajoran. Though she eventually recognized how misguided those feelings were, they lingered on for years. She doesn't want to be ashamed of being Bajoran anymore, so this was a way she could help her people. Things took a turn, however, when she found out that the Bajorans didn't attack the Federation colony, and now she doesn't know what the hell's going on or who to trust.
But that strange bartender of yours has a way of getting to you, and well, she said that you were her friend.
And we have one thing in common.
And Guinan was absolutely right. Ro can trust Picard, and he hatches up a plan. They're going to play along and escort a Bajoran ship with Orda and his people on board. Of course, the Cardassians don't take kindly to this and show up to stop them, and good lord, his eyes!
His eyes. His eyes.
Goldolan, Cardassian Militia 4-1.
Picard calls Kennelly and observes that it's kinda weird that the Cardassians seem to know everything about their mission. In fact, he's thinking that Admiral Kennelly met with the Cardassians, caught a cold and the idea to ambush Orda so the Cardassians can destroy him.
I think you've lost your perspective, Captain.
Getting orders to withdraw, the Enterprise moves away and the Cardassians blow up the ship.
Survivors?
No, sir. No one was on board.
Yep, the ship was controlled remotely, and the Admiral loses his shit.
They're terrorists, damn it. Why in the hell would you want to protect them?
The Bajorans couldn't have attacked the colony. Their ships are old and obsolete. They can't even go to warp. Wait a minute. So why were we investigating Orda in the first place? Presumably Starfleet knows their ships are old and obsolete. It's not like this is presented as new information. Picard mentions it like they all know. Why are we even here?
Why anything?
Turns out the entire thing was staged and the Cardassians found a patsy to help them out. Uh-oh, sounds like someone's going to prison.
Tell him to request a room in the East Wing. The West Wing gets awfully hot in the afternoons.
Ro is certainly free to go on her merry way, but Picard offers her a challenge. she could stay in Starfleet and become one of the best officers he's ever served with, seeing her potential. Ro's initially hesitant, but she agrees on one condition. And that was Ensign Ro, a pretty good episode and character. I love a good character episode, and I find Ro compelling. Life's been hard on her, so she had to be tough in order to survive. She's even shown to take initiative to improve her life, which is why she joined Starfleet to get out of the refugee camp. The incident on Guinan 2, however, put a mark on her record, which is why everyone shuns her, and she shuns everyone else.
When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on the world.
But it was Guinan, and later Picard, who helped her move beyond that to where she could have a promising career in Starfleet. I always saw this episode as showing the importance of mentorship and taking someone under your wing. Having a Guinan or a Picard as a mentor, even one who's willing to give someone a second chance, can be the difference between having a good officer with a promising career or one that simply washes out.
That's an interesting challenge. And I rarely refuse an interesting challenge.
So what do you think of the episode Ensign Ro? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What about the character herself? Do you agree with her actions, or do you think she made things more difficult than they needed to be? Should Riker have laid off her a little bit? And what are some of your favorite Bajoran episodes in Star Trek? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Treknalysis. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
And a terrific dancer.